Yo, 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 honors biology, you got Nick D with Fungi, with Kingdom Part 4. So why is it important to study fungi, or fungi, or fungus? Well, we have decomposition of both plants and animals. They do nutrient recycling. They have plant symbiosis, which means they live together. We got plant pathogens, which they kill the plant. Some animal diseases, and lichens, which are really cool because it's all about the plant and the fungi having to live together, and they cannot be separated. We've got rotting of military equipment, food spoilage, psychotropic compounds, ergot. Okay, so that's like a purple sac, acetomyces on rye, and it poisoned many people, and that is what actually caused like the Salem witch trials. So get this. So we got this fungus on the rye, and people were taking the rye and they were making it into bread, and they were eating it, and they were having all these psychotropic effects. They were seeing things, they were wigging out, and just sort of just going all nuts. And people would say that they were going to be witches because they were seeing things. But it was really just the side effect from eating the ergot, or the fungus that was on the rye. So there were no actual witches in the Salem witch trials. They were just people that were, poisoned by this fungus. But we killed a lot of people anyways. We also use fungus to do alcoholic beverages and ferment, and also to get bread. So here's some general information. They can be unicellular or multicellular. They are eukaryotic, so they have a nucleus. They have chitin in their cell walls. Not peptidoglycan, but chitin. And hard shells of insects are also made of chitin. Not being able to move at any stage, they have to have things and nutrients come to them. They are lacking chlorophyll, so no photosynthesis. They are larger than bacteria, and they do cell division. Okay, so they have these like filamentous tubules called hyphae that contain cytoplasm and nucleuses. Now, it could be only one nucleus or it could be many nuclei. They grow very quickly, and once the whole bunch of hyphae come together and aggregate or clump, they're known as a mycelium. So let's take a look. So again, once all these single-strand hyphae come together, we get a mycelium underneath here, and we have the fruiting body up top. Both of these are composed of hyphae, one single strand. So they are heterotrophic, which means they have to get nutrients from other food. We have saprophytes, which feed off of dead tissue or organic waste, decomposers. We have symbionts that have a mutual beneficial relationship between a fungus and another organism. Or we have parasites that feed off of living hosts and tend to cause disease or cause a pathogen. So heterotrophic absorption. So we got one of these hyphae things. And what happens is that it excretes out and directs it towards the thing it wants to degrade. And it sends out enzymes off of the hyphae tip. The enzymatic enzymes break down our organic compounds. And then the product then diffuses back into the hyphae. And that's how it gets its nutrients. So it's basically a bleh, and then it sucks it all back up once it's been degraded. Again, hyphae are tubular. They have a hard chitinous wall, and they can have compartments, or they don't have to. They can be multinucleated, or they could just have one nucleus per compartment. But they grow at the tip. Again, modifications. Some of them have a septum in between and have one nucleus per section. Some don't. Some have no sections and just are multinucleated. Some grow into plants and then suck out nutrients. And some hyphae are even adapted to trap and kill the prey. So here we see a nematode, which is a roundworm. And the hyphae has actually been able to trap it. And then this hyphae here will secrete enzymes and start breaking down our roundworm. It's kind of cool. So ecological roles, we know that they're going to be decomposers. We've got symbiosis living together, both mutual and parasitic. And they're a good food source for us. other organisms. Here we see some saprobes and some decomposers at work, degrading the dead organic matter or just decomposing pieces. So we see fungus on a wall over here on a ceiling. We see our poor fruit has been taken over by fungus. We see symbionts are living together in mutualistic harmony. So we have some fungus that live with ants, and they live together, and the ants help the fungus, and the fungus help degrade the nutrients for the ants, and so they live together in harmony. So nutrition, again, they're all heterotrophs, have to get their food source from somewhere else. They are sessile, therefore nutrients must be brought to them. That means they cannot move. The nutrients is absorbed through digestive enzymes, and they can either be saprophytes, which are decomposers, or parasites as well. Fungi are sporific. Yeah. So they use spores to actually reproduce. Now these spores can be created through mitosis or through sexual meiosis. So we see both ways. The purpose of spores is to allow them to reproduce and send their new offspring off to a new food source, or to create a resistant stage so that the fungus can survive through a period of harsh climate, or by means of introducing new genetic material or combinations into the population. Reproduction by spores, again, they can be sexual or asexual. We can use meiosis to create these spores, or mitosis to create these spores. And they're either going to be formed directly on the hyphae, inside of a sporangia, or inside of the fruiting body. So again, directly on the hyphae, inside of a sporangia, or right underneath inside of the fruiting body. Now, once a spore gets out and about, it'll land somewhere, and it'll start growing these hyphae. Again, once we get a huge mass of the hyphae, we then call it a mycelia. Diversity. They are not plants because they have a different cell wall composition, and they're going to be heterotrophs, not autotrophs. We've got 4 types. We've got sac fungi, club fungi, imperfect fungi, and common mold. So, Ascomycota is going to be our sac fungi. We both see sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction here. They are a cup-like fungi, or we also see them as morels or truffles. They are important plant parasites or saprophytes that actually break down dead and decaying plants. An example would be a yeast, which is a single-celled fungi. And they are decomposers, pathogens, and found in most lichen. Again, lichen is that cool one that we have a common bond between fungi and algae. And so, once they're living together, they can no longer be separated. So they form a new species called lichen. Again, here are some examples of sac fungi and the diversity of the sac fungi. Basidiomycota is going to be our club fungi. And most of them actually resemble a club. And we have sexual reproduction, but asexual reproduction is not so common. They are long-lived with dikaryotic mycelia, which means dikarya, so 2 nuclei. Rust and smuts are plant parasites, and we see mushrooms, polypores, puffballs, and fungi in birds' nests as examples. The enzymes decompose wood, leaves, and other organic materials. Again, they're going to be decomposers, pathogens, and some mycorrhizal association with plants. So some live with plants and are beneficial to plants. So now we have the imperfect fungi. They seldom or never reproduce sexually, so it's all about the asexual reproduction for the imperfect fungi. And we see them both have a vegetative state and a production of asexual spores. Getting into the molds tend to grow rapidly, have asexual spores, and many human importance. So we see it in food spoilage, in food products to actually create things such as cheeses and antibiotics. Human interaction, so beneficial. They are decomposers, nutrients and carbon recycling. We have biosynthetic factories that can be used to produce drugs and antibiotics, alcohol, acids, foods, fermenting products, and just eating the mushrooms. Model organisms for biochemical and genetic studies, because they reproduce rather quickly. Harmful effects. Destruction of food, lumber, paper goods, clothing. Animal and human diseases, including allergies, toxins, and poisonous mushrooms when we eat them, and plant diseases. So looking at some of those fungal diseases, athlete's foot is a fungus. We see Dutch elm disease, which actually can eat and deteriorate an elm tree, and ringworm that we can find in both dogs and a lot of times in wrestlers. Now, ringworm, most people want to think it's an actual worm, but it's not. It's actually a fungus. So here we see the Dutch elm disease, and it started here in the very center, and by the next year it had killed half of this tree. Again, ringworm. Ringworm actually looks in like a spiral, which some people actually think is a worm, but it's not. It's just a fungus. Human uses again is for food production, such as wine, beer, cheese, and fermenting things, bread for yeast production, antibiotics such as penicillin, and drugs including hallucinogens and shrooms. So, yeah, a fungus walks into a club and asks the girl out. She says no, and he responds, "Why not? I'm a fungi." Have a great night.